welcome everybody. It is an absolute pleasure to spend the next half hour or 45 minutes. Who knows how long we're going to talk. I don't know. I'm here with Julie Lythcott-Haims. And Julie, let me tell everybody about you before we get started. So if you don't know her, now you do. She is a New York Times best-selling author. She's written the book, How to Raise an Adult, among many books. I actually have the audiobook. I downloaded it and I listened to it while I'm on the road, and I really love your book. And she also has many sides to her. The wonderful critically acclaimed book, Real American, is a beautiful book that's a representation of so much of Julie's journey to get to where she is. And I know that speaks to so many people. And she's currently working on a new book, which I know you probably want to jump in here as I do this, because when people do these intros, all I want to do is jump in. But Julie's new book is How to Be an Adult, and she's been writing it and working on it. And if you follow her on social media, you could see she gets really excited some days, and other days she's not so excited. Those are tough days. She's also a former corporate lawyer and a former dean at Stanford. She's got an amazing website, incredible social media. She has two wonderful, beautiful children. She lives in Palo Alto. She's had a partner for 30 years. She wants to help. That is what she does. And Julie, thank you for being so generous. I'm so humbled and grateful to have you here with me today. Welcome.
Whoa, Harlan, that was the most beautiful introduction I have ever had, I think. Your energy and enthusiasm is just so palpable, and in these times when we're all starved for human connection, you just managed to transmit so much with your voice and your body language and your eyes and the words you chose. I'm blushing because you said such nice things about me, and I just I'm so grateful to get to be in conversation with you today. So let's do it.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, we bumped into each other at a hotel lobby, and
I was like, how do I know this guy? I know this guy. Yes.
yeah, you were doing a talk on Real American, and we visited some lobby, some city, somewhere. Honestly, it all blends together. But even then, you know, we had this wonderful conversation. We hadn't met before, and you know, it's nice that you talk about the energy, because like you have that energy too. I mean, it clearly comes through, and just being around you and feeling that was so wonderful. And I see this happening, and you've been, you know, really you're present in so many people's lives. And I want to share some of that light with the rest of the world. You've done amazing things, and you continue to do amazing things. But I want to mix things up a little bit today. So I prepared some questions for you. And I don't know if you've gotten these questions before, okay? Oh, yeah, you're going to need a pen. And here's the deal. You know, I respect you and your boundaries. And if these questions violate you or your boundaries, and I know you're very good, you're not going to let that happen. But forgive me, but I may ask some intimate questions as well. Is that okay?
That's just between us, Harlan, right?
It's just between us. Right. So, all right. So we'll get things started. So let's start. And you happen to look fantastic. So this question was set up before.
Okay.
Well, let's do it up. Whatever you need to do. We're all at home. I'm in my basement. There's wood paneling. You can't tell. Anyway. All right. So I have to say you look great. I have to premise it with this. Okay. So the question is, how many times, honestly, how many times have you showered in the past 2 weeks?
Oh, probably 13 or 14 times. I have been showering, but I've been showering so much later in the day. That's been my change. So my ritual, okay, to stay sane, I've been, you know, getting up, working out, Cloroxing my house. All the knobs and switches and doorknobs and appliance handles and stuff, you know, and doing that all in my workout clothes and making my way sometimes upstairs to clean the upstairs, but often I get waylaid and get over to where my laptop is So then I get into email and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all of that and some work. And then I realize it's 3 PM or it's 4:30 and I'm still in my workout clothes. And so I've been making my way upstairs to shower late. And I find myself thinking, why am I even doing this? Like, I'm about to make dinner,
Right.
you know, but then I think, yeah, my grandmother said to my mother, who was tiny in World War II, my grandmother, so my mother is 81, and apparently uh, when my grandmother was struggling raising 5 little children during World War II, one day she didn't clean herself up, and her mother, my great grandmother, said, why do you have your apron on? Why isn't your hair done? And her husband was away fighting World War II, and she's like, I have nobody to clean up for. And my great grandmother said to my grandmother, yeah, clean up for yourself, honey. Now
I
she
love
had
it.
a British accent, so I did the wrong accent, but it was like,
We're
love, you've got to clean up for yourself, something like that. Anyway, that wisdom has been passed on down through these generations of women, and I think I was cleaning up for myself late in the day, but still doing it.
right. So you're bathed, and I think that's a great tip. I know that you have a lot of tips, and we'll get to some of those. But showering every day. I like the shower. I had a great meeting. I have meetings in the shower, and they're
Really?
just with me. It's not like, I'm not doing Zoom in the shower, which is probably a different kind of naked roommate thing. I try to
Yeah.
keep things clean.
Yeah.
But I did. I had a really great meeting, and I had a wonderful discovery of how to put together some media, and I was so jazzed. It was exciting. So, okay, let's get to some more questions, because I've got a lot of these. So,
I'm
but
ready.
it's to get to know you a little better, and for other
Right.
people who maybe don't know this side of you. So you roll out of bed later in the day. Everybody's schedule has changed, mine as well. What website do you look at first thing in the morning? And it could be 2 or 3, or it could be on your phone, but what are you looking at?
Well, by website, you mean app as well, right? What button do I push? Okay. Um,
Like today.
Frankly, New York Times alert comes in. It vibrates. I never have my phone volume on, but just the vibration of the phone on the bedside table can wake me up
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And so it was a New York Times alert, something. I would have clicked on that, maybe read the first paragraph of whatever that story was. When I don't wake up to New York Times alert, I'm probably first waking up and checking emails. I'm looking at emails. My speaking agent, my actual agent are all on the East Coast. I'm a CBS This Morning contributor, and they're all awake 3 hours before me. So they might be saying stuff at 5 a.m. my time. So I feel like my obligation is to just check and see if my East Coast peeps have need me or need something from me. So that's
Right.
where I connect. Yeah.
Right. So you start off great. Okay. And then the next question is, how many rolls of toilet paper do you have in your home right now?
Oh, Harlan, I just tweeted about this yesterday. I was like, no,
I saw
Palo
that.
Alto, Mountain View peeps, where's the toilet paper at? Because every time we've gone to the local stores that we normally frequent, literally now for 3 weeks, nothing. The stores
Wow.
are bare. I'm like, what are we going to do? Fortunately, we had we didn't hoard, but we did stock up, knowing that our kids were coming back home. The last shop we did before that, we bought a couple of those jumbo things.
Sure.
But now we've got 4 people in the house instead of 2, and we are counting. I think we have like 18 rolls left.
18.
And
Okay.
it sounds like a lot, and I'm not going to get too personal here, but I'm just going to say, like, not everyone uses the same amount all the time. So
Right.
I'm starting to worry that I'm going to have, I happen to get a lot of cash out that I thought I might need to spend 3 weeks ago. Maybe in my last work trip, I was down in LA. We're actually pitching a screenplay for how to raise an adult, if you can believe that. That was my last work trip. And I had cash, just to tip people and whatnot. And now with all that cash is in my wallet. So I'm thinking of just like walking down the street with a big sign that says cash for toilet paper. And,
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
I thought you were gonna. I didn't think you do that, but I was thinking, the cash, you'd have to use the cash as toilet paper,
No.
which would just be that would not.
I would definitely use. I got some books around here that I
I was
don't
gonna
need.
say you've got a lot of Tinder around you, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So that's
I know,
helpful.
that's
Okay.
a bad thing for an author to say. I would never use books, but I would use old newspaper.
Right. You wouldn't wipe with books, right? We're being very we're walking
Or
a
just
fine
jump
line.
in the shower. Back to your shower point. I mean, a lot of people are like, if you need to wipe that much, why not just jump in the shower? And I think there's some wisdom to that.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in doing things old school ways. You know, there's new ways to do things. So yeah, I tell you, I think I have to watch myself with you because I might be inappropriate. It's too easy to talk to you. It's
Yes.
like,
Be yourself, Harlan. I'm here. I want to support you in being you.
okay, I'll have to walk that line. I know my wife's going to watch. Okay, so in the past 10 days, Julie, and this is I need you to be honest, okay?
Okay, right on.
And it might not be a big question for you, but how many times have you lost your temper in the past 10 days?
Moi?
Or have you?
What makes you think I have a temper, number one?
That's why it might be a silly question. It could be a big waste of everyone's time.
Oh my God. Last 10 days. I
Mm-hmm.
lost my temper at least 3 big times that I can remember. Once with my mother, once with my daughter, once with my husband. And the only reason my son is probably out of this equation is because he's quarantined upstairs in our house and all we do is serve him meals. And we have these like brief interactions that are lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I've lost it. And I know why. Because I'm scared, anxious, worried. And on top of that, those very vulnerable feelings sits our tool of anger, you know, or our need to control. So I'm
Yeah.
a bit of a control freak at times. And so those tendencies were starting to pop out. And I lost it with my husband last night and said some mean things. And this morning I just said, I'm so sorry. And we talked about it, and I was able to kind of dig into like what was going on for me. And he's amazing. He's amazingly generous of spirit and heart, and he's more evolved than me. I'm certain. He's been around this life thing for a long time, it feels, whereas I'm like the edgy one. Anyway, so you weren't asking for the details. I won't share them unless they're somehow relevant.
No, I love it.
3 big.
Well,
I'll
what's
tell you one
interesting
example
is,
I want to
and I
share.
know that,
Okay.
yeah, love.
So,
that's okay, you're sharing now. Good.
My 81-year-old mother, we all live together. She lives in an attached cottage. We all bought the house together to afford Palo Alto public schools. And then we were able to attach a cottage to it that she now is in. So we used to be under the same roof. Now we have privacy with proximity. And she said to me the other day, she said to all of us, I need to get out of the house. I'm going crazy. I need to just go to the store. And we're like, Mom, you can't. You're 81. You're not supposed to. The government doesn't want you to. We don't want you to. Can we go for you? She's like, oh, I need to go. And, I'm starved for people. And I've only seen each one of you 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I've only seen all of you collectively 3 times. And I really had my buttons pushed. I was like, what is she talking about 3 times? I've been over there at least 20 times, keeping my distance, but like checking in. And I got upset with her, and I just sort of was like, Mom, that's not true, right? It's how can you say 3 times actually has been 20, And she was like, it's been 3 times. And anyway, she left, went to the store despite our, efforts
She left.
to have her.
And this is in San Francisco's closed down.
Well, we're allowed to go get groceries.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So she went out to go get groceries. Right? She needed some groceries and she was like, I will go get myself some groceries. You people are not looking after me enough, was kind of the underlying thing. My brilliant 18-year-old daughter, and I say brilliant and I mean it, I had just been fighting with her a week ago about could she see her friends and stay 6 feet apart and all of that. Like her whole life has changed, and which I have empathy for, but also like you need to follow the rules. Anyway, my daughter goes, Mom, I think maybe the difference between you and Gaga is she thinks of a visit as come into her house, sit down, have a beverage, and you think of a visit as, hey, I popped over and saw you. So maybe you're both right. And I realized, so when Mom came back from the store, she was able to say, Julie, I'm sorry that I was so difficult. This is what's been going on for me. My phone is blowing up with notifications because now I'm on Zoom and now I'm on WhatsApp, and and she's just going crazy because of the technology pings that she's getting. And she said, that's why I was in a bad mood. And I was able to say, Mom, I appreciate, thanks to Avery, that maybe you only feel like I've seen you 3 times because the way that I'm showing up doesn't equate to a visit. So let's figure out how you can have the visit that you need. So we've set up morning coffees, 9 a.m. We sit outside on her stoop, 6 feet apart, drinking coffee and chatting for about 45 minutes to an hour. So that's how that fight became, a nice solution.
I think that's beautiful. one of the hardest things for me is upsetting my parents. I don't really like to upset my parents. I'm the youngest of three kids. And I saw when my brothers would get my parents upset. And I didn't want to do that. And, you know, I've had a couple, you know, they're a similar age. And in the beginning, you know, there was this resistance of really not wanting to acknowledge it to the level it needs to be acknowledged, because we were really a little, you know, very vigilant here. Even the thing of like playing Mahjong, or, you know, those little interactions that fill them with so much joy, or going to Starbucks, or, you know, and it created some friction. And I think that's something that's happening to a lot of people who are our age or have parents who are in that higher risk range of, you know, how do you talk to as an adult, how can I talk to my parent and be very clear when I want them to do something and they are adults, double adults, and who am I to tell them? But it comes from a place of love. And I think what you hit on is it's the next day. It's not the argument that matters.
Right.
It's how do we work through that the next day, and how quickly can we, without having this be the thing that distracts us from the real pain. And it's interesting because, you know, I didn't even know where the questions would lead, but that piece, and I don't know if you've seen this too, Julie, and you know, my parents, they're too young to have gone through World War II and all of that. They've had some wars and conflicts, but there's never been anything in their lifetime that has equated to this. And so many people who are more experienced in life are also very vulnerable, and they're really scared. And, you know, one of the things that I want to talk to you is, how does a parent talk to their kid? But a really interesting piece is, how does a kid talk to their parent? You know, I think that you were really touching on that, which is a whole fascinating piece of, like, you know, I know you're always looking to explore different pieces, and like that what you touched on is such a hot nerve, because we care so much, and our parents tend to want to do what they want to do. Okay. So another question, how many pages of How to Be an Adult did you plan on writing over the past 2 weeks? And how many pages have you actually written?
0 and 0.
So you planned on doing 0.
Well, here's why. First of all, I have to give you some news that's hot off the presses, if I may.
Yeah.
The title of the book has changed. My publisher just told me this.
Okay.
The sequel to How to Raise an Adult, the Anti-Helicopter Parenting Manifesto, that's coming out next year, that is for young adults struggling with adulting, is going to be called, drum roll, It's Your Turn, The Real How-To on Adulting.
Ooh, I like that.
It's your turn. The real how-to on adulting. It's a compassionate beckoning, like, come on, it's your turn. I know it's terrifying, but it's also amazing to #adult. Come on now, y'all, it's your turn. So I wrote half of it and turned in half in February, early February. And then my calendar had me speaking across the country, February, March, April. And so I was not going to get to the rest of it really till May. So knowing that, even though all my speaking has been canceled, 0 writing was planned and 0 writing has gotten done. I'm procrastinating. And every day I'm like, I know I got to work on my book. I know I got to work on my book. But see, the procrastinator knows, oh, I wasn't going to get this done until May, so I'm good. It's only March.
So yeah, that's first of all, that's really exciting news, because I've been following your writing journey. Secondly, that title rocks. I love it. It's Your Turn. Guy, it's a wonderful title. It's fun to say. It really flows into the next thought. As an author, I always like to think of, you know, when I'm talking about my book and presenting it. So I think that's really wonderful, and congratulations. And then the other piece is, you know, I wonder, you know, I've seen what you've been doing by having virtual office hours. And, you know, this is Julie Lythcott-Haims, those of you who aren't familiar. And you can find Julie all over social media. You're going to find her in the program description here. You can find her on her website. She just hosted a webinar this morning offering tips to parents. You know, she is there for you. And I feel that, you know, the timing of this is really a blessing, because now really you're able to be present in so many ways that can serve so many people. So, you know, what a wonderful gift that that we've all been given. So,
Thanks, Harlan. You're such a sweetheart. Thank you.
oh, you know what? It's like I I speak from my soul, and really, you know,
Dude.
there are certain people in the world who you know, I know you really love to help, and the fact that you can do this is great. So, okay, we'll keep doing that. I got a few more of these. Are you enjoying these?
Oh, love it. Love it. I've never had a more entertaining interview, so keep going.
Wow, and you like, that is so kind. Okay, all right. So I like this one too, and I love how honest you are. On a scale of 1 to 10, okay, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, how kind have you been to yourself over the past 10 days? 1 being very unkind to yourself, very unforgiving. 10, really loving yourself completely and giving yourself the credit and and the love that you deserve.
I'm gonna say probably like an 8.5. It's been a
Mm.
good 2 weeks for me. Here's why. I have had pneumonia in my life 4 or 5 times, never bad enough to be hospitalized, but dragged me down, could not go to work, obviously. Like walking to the bathroom was just a chore on my lungs. Um, and so I'm terrified of coronavirus, COVID-19. I have the sense that I'm not likely to do well with that, with battling that infection should it come my way. So I began paying attention to the news on this thing a lot earlier than most people I know. I recall probably a month ago texting my husband and 2 children. My one child was in North Carolina, the other was in Oregon.
Will you tell us their
Um,
ages?
they're 20 and 18. My
Okay.
son Sawyer is 20. My daughter Avery's 18. Avery's in college, a freshman. Sawyer is taking a year off college right now, would be a junior had he not taken a year off.
Okay.
And so I texted them probably about a month ago, late February, saying, hey, y'all, I think it's time for us to take this thing seriously. It looks like we need masks. It looks like we need hand sanitizers. Just looking at the imagery that was coming out of other jurisdictions that had already had it, I told my family that. And you know, turns out we don't need masks unless we're not well, and the healthcare people need masks. So I have taken the masks that we purchased and given them to my friend who's a doctor at Stanford Hospital, who's very grateful, as any healthcare worker would be, to receive whatever we've got in our homes that they need. So
Yeah.
just that's a public service announcement from me. But anyway, so I've been really pulling back. I've been paying attention, trying to practice safer behaviors, even when most of the world wasn't. You know, going in to give a speech and saying like, hey, right, like I would love to shake your hand, but I'm not shaking hands. Anyway, so by 10 days ago, I was sheltering in place. I've been sheltering in place now for 16 days, and no hugs, no touch of anybody, and not leaving my house because I don't, you know, I just was so worried that I had already gotten it out there in the world as a public speaker. So I've been really kind to myself because I've been noticing the anxiety when my husband brings groceries home, you know, sort of once every 10 days, once a week. I've been so panicked about what's on the packaging and how to, you know,
Mhm.
and he's been so loving with me. So I noticed the panic because I have a pretty good mindfulness practice. So I
Mhm.
can see myself like overreacting and freaking out and holding my hands like this. And I'm like, look, Julie, look how scared you are. You're all right. It's going to be all right. So I kind of lovingly talk myself through my fears, and my husband is a great supporter, and just doesn't tell me I'm being dumb or foolish or ridiculous. He's like, yeah, this is no different than what happened yesterday when such and such, and you know that went fine. You know, he's
Can
just
I
giving.
interrupt you? Because I
Yeah.
have a question for you. Now, you were so aware of this so early that there's the big risk of, you know, the pushback of, Julie, you're crazy. Julie, why are you doing this? Julie, you're overreacting. Julie, you have to chill out. Um, did you deal with that?
You know, I was at an authors week here locally, local public high school brought in a bunch of authors first week of March. And it says my connection is unstable, so I'm just getting back. Are we good? Okay. And it was a high school, and just so many kids and so many doors to turn knobs on. And this woman who was assigned to kind of follow me, take me to 3 different classrooms, she's like, I'm a hugger. And I was like, so am I. But in light of the coronavirus, I'm not hugging. And she made a face kind of like, oh, and it was my first pushback. It wasn't a big pushback, but I could feel that she might've felt rejected or, just that she didn't understand, but I just held to it. But then, so I went in classroom 1, that was great. Classroom 2, that was great. Classroom 3, the teacher, sneezed, came over and gave me a big hug, all within like 12 seconds. And I was so like, and he hugged, I couldn't, to struggle to get out of it. His hug was going to feel so
right.
I'm an African-American woman. I'm very light-skinned, but I'm Black. I identify as Black. This happened to be a Black man, the only Black teacher at this school, who is an amazing teacher. All the kids love him. And the last thing I wanted to do was like be pulling away from the embrace of a Black man. So my identification with my people and that struggle and how we are perceived in the world overrode my, I don't want to touch anybody because of coronavirus. So,
right.
Whoa. So that was fast. And I watched through my mindfulness practice, I watched all of this happening. I was like, okay, right. I know what you're doing, So not too much pushback. And I grew more certain every day that I had the right to protect my own space.
It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do, and people don't understand. And, you got to be great at rejection. You got to be great at handling discomfort. I have more questions, but I want to touch on something because you've mentioned it about 3 times, is your mindfulness practice. And that's something that I've been really working on and evolving. And sometime I'd love to share that more with you and go into depth of that. And it's been transformative, but I would love to know what your mindfulness practice is, and if there's anyone who is watching this, or when you're watching this, I hope someone's watching this, when people are watching this, if you could even share some of those specific resources that have really informed you and helped you, because you seem like you're managing things really well, because you're over an 8 out of 10. So what are some of those techniques?
So my hat goes off to Mary Ellen Myers, my executive coach at Stanford 10 years ago, who worked with me and others on my team and our boss to basically figure out how we could, understand one another better, get along better, work on our own stuff. And she taught me this practice. And so unfortunately, I don't have a website to promote or a particular book, because I learned this practice from a human being. So that's why I'm just mentioning her name, Mary Ellen Myers. She's a coach. Many coaches are capable of helping us with this. She taught me to notice what was happening in my body when I felt the need in the workplace to defend myself, argue with somebody, jump on somebody, whatever it was. Kind of, I'm known for big emotion and reactivity, and there are a lot of good reasons for that. But the point was, it was getting in the way of my being able to be as effective as I wanted to be. So she was helping me, and I write all about this in my memoir, Real American, if people are interested. She helped me notice, when you feel the need to kind of jump in and do that, see if you can instead pay attention to what's happening in your body. And I developed over months a practice of noticing, my voice is deepening. I already have a deep voice. When I get scared, it goes 1 full register deeper and gets really gravelly. And I started to notice that. It's now a wonderful clue from myself that I'm not feeling okay, or my mouth gets dry, or whatever it might be. My body is giving me evidence of my own fears way before my brain goes to respond with anger or defensiveness or whatever. So the more I learned to practice that and notice it, the better I could sense stuff coming, and then decide, like, okay, do I want to say something or not? Do I need to do it now or not? What do I want to say? How do I want to be? Instead of just reactively, just responding to everything. And that has been a life changer. And it has allowed me to be in charge of myself. And so, yeah, it's I'm delighted to have this practice in place of being able to notice what I'm feeling as it's coming. Um,
Yeah.
and give myself a nice little loving, you're all right. You're all right. You're all right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. I'm a real big fan of the book The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. He goes by Mickey Singer, and it's a really
Okay.
it's a wonderful book. It's a great audio book as well, and he talks a lot about being at the seat of consciousness, and it's a big concept. And I've tried to share it with others, and I always stumble all over it, so I'm not even going to do it. I can't do it justice, but basically it's the idea that we are the ones who are observing the things that are happening around us. You know, that
Yeah.
when I see things and smell things and experience and read things, it's not really me, because there's somebody who's aware of the things that I'm processing, and I'm really at the seat of consciousness. And it's this idea of being able to observe. And even in the midst of a pandemic, I was telling my wife, there's a part of me that's like, when things, when it's trauma and triage, when that's what's happening, I become an observer. And maybe that's why I'm a writer, and you may experience this as well. But I think, wow, like this is what it's like to live in a pandemic. Like this is what it's like to have society close. This is what it's like to go through this. Then I was thinking, and I'll go on a tangent just because, you know, why not? Is because I've never been through something like this, and it's so dramatic. I was thinking, wow, I wonder if this is what it was like in World War II, when all of a sudden uh, towns were being closed down and invaded, and all of a sudden our lives began to change, and what was once so abnormal started to become much more normal. You know, my daughter was upset about not going to school, and she had her birthday last week, and it was a very big deal. She was very upset, feeling lots of emotions, and for good reason. But now that is just a grain of sand in terms of the bigger concerns that she's experiencing and the world's experiencing. And the discomfort and the abnormality of everyday life has become a norm, where we're so removed. And the consciousness of being at a time in an era where so much is changing. I'm Jewish, and the Holocaust and Nazi Germany and all that is really something I've been taught and learned about my whole life. And the idea, I was talking to my mom earlier today about this, of like, you know, we go from a norm to an abnormal way of life so quickly that I imagine that 2 more steps isn't so dramatic. And I'm not saying that that's what's happening now. I hope you understand what I'm saying, is that we are in such an abnormal time that when, like, the NBA not happening, March Madness not happening, you know, all of this stuff was a big deal, and it becomes a less and less of a deal. Then the new normal becomes something so abnormal that we forget what the other life was when we're in the midst of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
makes sense, as much as it makes more sense than everything that's happening around us and to us. It is, we are literally, as we do it, trying to make sense of something that is brand new and bewildering. And our kids are looking to us for guidance, and rightly so, and we need to provide it. And yet very few of us has any set of answers. We're all winging it. We're all, the information changes every 3 hours, it feels. And so we've got to be role models for our kids around, you know, it is normal to feel like things are falling apart. You've had the rug pulled out from under you. Your prom is canceled, your graduation, you can't see your friends, whatever it is, you know, your teacher's trying to communicate with you through a laptop. And that's weird and different, and sometimes scary and frustrating and sad, and that's valid. And here's what we do have control over. You know, I'm going to make you a meal right now, and I would love to know, of all these things in the refrigerator, what would you most like? You know, and later we're going to play a board game together, or we're going to watch that Netflix show you've been telling me about, or whatever it is. It's like, you know, taming the chaos and the uncertainty by showing up around the things we can control. You know, I don't know if school will reopen this spring, but we're gonna have to wait and see how that plays out. But let's have an option A plan and an option B. If it does reopen, if it doesn't, you know,
Right.
you know, both are possible. So let's lean into both and think both through. Um, it's, you know, this is what we can offer our kids. And then we have to have a place to go to vent and cry and be scared with people who we don't have to be dispassionate around, or not dispassionate, but we don't want to be breaking down in front of our kids, but we can go and vent and break down with people who are there to support us, and we can be there for them, and then kind of show back up with our parenting vibe and
Right.
reassure the kids in the ways they need to be reassured.
Yeah. Well, I like how you brought me from this catastrophic time in history of total chaos to centering us back in the worlds that we live in, the environments that we do control. Because while there are those big thoughts of it's chaos and uncertainty, and we haven't been dealing with all of these things, hope, ritual, control over my environment, those things really have been reassuring for me, and also, for my family. And as a parent, really recognizing that we are in the midst of history.
Yeah.
This is something my 13-year-old said to my 6-year-old, Asher, you got to remember this. You got to remember this. This is history. And I think that observer, being someone as a parent and caregiver who can recognize that this is such a uncertain time, how can we find certainty? How can we find control? I know that you hosted a webinar that had 10 tips for sheltering in place without losing your mind. Is that something you're going to be sharing as well for people? Will they be able to see that, a rebroadcast, or are you going to offer that again?
Yeah, I thank you for mentioning it. The video is being prepared as we speak, and it'll be up on my website, which is julielythcott-haims.com. I'm happy to send you the link so you can send it to your people, Harlan. The other thing that I wanted to say, just to circle back to your summary of what I said, as you spoke and you said, I'm Jewish, I was reminded that not too many days ago, I had begun to think about, with my kids having to shelter in place, that for all kinds of different reasons, my kids are having an experience that is somewhat akin to what Anne Frank went through. And I don't mean in any way to equate the Holocaust with coronavirus, but simply the act of a child not being able to leave one's house because there's a threat externally. That was what I was equating. And I began thinking of Elie Wiesel and his book Night, and the lessons that came out of Holocaust survival. And just to your point, and my children are half Jewish, my husband is Jewish, my mother-in-law is an Orthodox Jew, so I am not Jewish, but I have tremendous respect for Jewish people, history, culture. And anyway, so, there are lessons that our ancestors have passed on to us in our DNA, and in their writings, in their stories. And few humans have gone through what we're going through right now, partly because we're in a technological age that allows us to have more access to information about a virus. And viruses have been around forever, but our ability to understand it and unpack it and spread information about it is quite new. But so while our situation feels very unique, humans have struggled with terrible things throughout history, and there are lessons to be drawn from their strength, their tactics, their coping skills, and so on. And I think we can actually find some comfort in that, that humans have survived terrible things before, and we will figure this out, and history will definitely record what this era was like and what we chose to do. And this brings me to the imperative that we call it the coronavirus or COVID-19 and not the Chinese virus or the Wuhan virus, because your people, my people, are accustomed to being targets of hate in this country and elsewhere. And Chinese Americans and anyone who looks Asian, frankly, depending on where you live, is being targeted with acts of hate and violence. And it's just heartbreaking. And we've all got to sorry, I'm getting some messages on my screen. We've all got to do our part to try to stop the hatred that sits on top of people's fears and allows them to do really harmful things. That's a piece of this time too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I am right there with you. And the remedy, or at least my role, and I think everybody has to, or everybody doesn't have to, but I think it's helpful when we assign ourselves a role, you know, of like, what is my role during this event, this time in history? And I did it accidentally. And it was just a way of me to be able, a way for me to be able to deal with this is that I want to serve and I want to offer love. And I want to shine bright, as bright as I've ever shined before, so that when there's hate and when there are people who are scared and say and do things that are born from ignorance, if I can be bright and light and surround myself with people like you and connect with others, then hopefully we can outshine those dark moments and those people who are reacting in ways that are not healthy and unfair. And I want to thank you, Julie, because when I talked about World War II and being Jewish and the Holocaust, and you know, I felt a little wacky for a second, like I was going off on this big thing because I haven't shared that. And I really appreciate you acknowledging that, and that idea of being sheltered and being scared and the unknown. I know we're not dealing with that. I know that is not what's happening, but identifying with the idea of having to stay in a place and being scared and not knowing are things that really connect us. And again, you beautifully helped me to, by offering those thoughts. I talk to students a lot about share things you're scared to share, and share them with people who you're safe sharing them with. And it's a little scary sharing stuff live with you, just because there's fear of judgment and what are people going to think. And it's really wonderful to be able to do that. You are offering so many people, so many resources. And before we wrap things up, I would love for those who are tuning in to know if they'd like to communicate with you more, they want to connect with you, your community, your parents. A lot of people really respect you. What are the best ways for people to continue this conversation with you?
So I just got so inspired. I just wrote down this thing you said, I want to serve and shine a light. You know, this is like in my little bullet journal of where I keep track of everything. I just love what you said about the role you're assigning yourself in this time, Harlan, and I feel it, and everyone who knows you, I'm sure, feels it. You're really doing it. So to stay connected to me, I actually have a screen share. Can I do that? Because I have a slide up here.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Try that?
I would love it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh shoot, it's not.
Is it working? Have I given you
Oh,
permissions?
there it is. No, we're good. Ta-da! This is how to stay connected to me.
That is wonderful.
Is this showing?
Yes.
I'm so glad. Good. Yeah, so this is my website, and then my social handles are all the same. Finally, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And then there's the title of my new book that's coming, the adulting book. So that's how to stay connected with me, folks. You can just screenshot that or take a photo with your phone, and Lythcott-Haims.com is where it all begins. So if you can't grab any of this before it disappears, just go to my website, Lythcott-Haims.com.
Wonderful. And what we'll also do is, this is also a podcast, and we're going to include all of the links in the notes. We'll include links to your books. If there's anything that you want to offer or share, I'll make sure to include that as well. And when we post this on Before College TV in the description, we'll make sure to have all of those links and resources available to everybody to stay connected with you. There is so much more that I would love to talk to you about, but I want to respect your time, and I hope to put a big to be continued, because you're so much fun. I love talking to you. It's amazing because I'm in this basement, and I'll even show you, like, this is fascinating. So like when I turn this, hold on, I'm going to turn this. So like, look what happens when I move my screen. Like, this is wood paneling basement, right? Like, this is the best. And then I go this way, it's like, what? So now it looks so fancy. But I love that I could be in this basement. Oh, that's where the real stuff happens. You're being only
my little 96 square foot she shed in my yard.
It's cool. If anyone wants to see the shed, I know Julie, you've showed us from the outside, and it's cool. But you know, to be able to interact with you and to be able to get to know you better, because our relationship is really new, is wonderful. And for you to come here with me and take that time is so generous. So anyway, I'm going to put a big to be continued. This is Julie Lythcott-Haims. You can see all her information. Check out her book, How to Raise an Adult. Also check out Real American, and a beautiful memoir. And Julie's new book is coming as well. So we'll stay in touch. Thank you all for being here. And Julie, thank you for being here as well.
It was such a joy, Harlan. I love you and I love your work, and I'm delighted to get to be a part of it today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.